I find David very credible. He gets very high marks from his colleagues. Very good track record serving in the military, serving in military intelligence. He was promoted when he went into the ARROW program, which is the Pentagon program studying UFOs. He got a higher security clearance. He followed all the rules when it comes to providing testimony, including whistleblower testimony, and no one has suggested otherwise.
Right.
So I find him credible. The people I interviewed who also know him are very credible themselves and have high security clearances. And they testified that David is who he says he is. And, he's not the first whistleblower that I've interviewed. I've actually interviewed a fair number of whistleblowers now, including some former FBI whistleblowers. I'm interviewing other whistleblowers related to other cases. And whistleblowing is a very stressful activity, and it affects people differently. And I found David has handled this very well, and brings a lot of the same kind of Boy Scout energy that I found with the FBI whistleblowers. So what you find often with whistleblowers is that these are people that are not as willing to break or bend the rules as some of their colleagues. They feel they have a commitment to the American people or the U.S. Constitution that trumps their immediate professional loyalties. And so these are people that are obviously willing to buck the hierarchy when they feel like something bad is occurring in these agencies. And David Grush feels that something very bad is happening. And I think he's right, which is that there is a cover-up going on. There's been a cover-up going on for many decades. The cover-up, it's not a secret that the Defense Department and other intelligence agencies have been covering up UFOs. They've been doing it for decades. And every time something else comes out, you have to remember that they have been studying it for a long time, and they just haven't been transparent about what they've been finding with the American people.
And I guess more similar along the lines of the credibility, I saw some of the feedback on your article, and I hate to ever dive into comments and deal with that, but I saw some people saying, they were like, "Oh, Michael, I love your work, and I've been singing your praises, and now your credibility shot because you're dealing in, this fringe science and extraterrestrials and all that." What do you say to that? Is this something you believe to be very real and not, not conspiracy theorists, not Hollywood, none of that stuff?
Well, obviously, I don't like being criticized. I don't like people saying that to me. On the other hand, I've been doing this for long enough that I've had that said to me so frequently over the last 20 years. Every time I do something, every time I report on something controversial, people tell me that my career is over, my credibility is shot. So yeah, I always take it with a grain of salt. The other thing that happens is that people attribute to me beliefs that I may or may not hold, but have not expressed. And so, for example, I noticed some people say things like, "Well, I wish there were aliens," or maybe that I wish that there were aliens. That is not something that I wish for. I'm not saying that I wish there weren't aliens, but I don't actually know if I think it would be good or bad if that were the case. I'm actually agnostic at this point. I'd like to learn more. Right. Also, my article was very straight reporting. I do have opinions about many things, and I write about my opinions on many things. In this case, the only real opinions I expressed is that these were credible people, these are credible people, and that they deserve to be heard. And they were saying absolutely incredible things. And you'll also note at the top of the article, I give a lot of space for the Department of Defense to say what its conclusions are. I also observed that there was a change in the way that the Defense Department was describing this issue. And that in April, the head of ARROW, again, the DoD's UFO study arm, they said that there was no credible evidence of extraterrestrial craft or life. In response to David Grush, they said there was no verifiable evidence. I'm not saying that they were changing their tune. They're talking about two sort of separate things. But the Intelligence Community Inspector General said that David Grush's testimony was both credible and urgent. And in fact, whether or not there are alien spacecraft or non-human spacecraft is the jargon that people would rather use. That is something that's verifiable. You can go into the U.S. military bases or contractor facilities and look for them. And this is the point that I've been making to many of my friends who are very strong UFO skeptics, which is that if you are sure that there are no non-human spacecraft or non-human craft, because we don't really know how these things would operate, but if you're really sure of it, then you would have no objection. In fact, you should be the first in line to go and investigate so that you can tell everybody that you were right. And which is a very satisfying thing to do. So that's kind of what I point out. I go, great. So we have a question and we're going to go find out. The alternative is that you don't really have a democracy, because in a democracy, the civilians control the military. The military does not control the civilian population. So as somebody that believes in democracy and feels very strongly about it, I'm bothered that there are clearly people preventing us from getting to the bottom of this. And the amount of fear with which the people I interviewed spoke, and the retaliation that David Grush, the whistleblower, experienced, are all things that should bother us as people that support living in a free and open society, whatever your views are on this issue. So I feel like that is, in some ways, I view this work more as coming out of my concern with what I view as creeping totalitarianism in the society than any interest in extraterrestrial or